Welcome, everyone. It's really a delight to have you on board today for what I promise you is going to be a really exciting, informative, provocative panel as we address the theme, No Human is Illegal. We've got an amazing lineup of panelists, and I'll be introducing them to you in a moment. First, myself, I'm David Mcnally. I'm an editor of Spectre Journal. And along with our partners for this event, Haymarket Books, I want to welcome you to our discussion today. Spectre Journal has been trying to address a whole series of issues of vital urgency to the left, and there can be little doubt that migration, borders, and migrant justice must be in the forefront of these debates and discussions. To this end, we hope that events like this will contribute to broader political, theoretical, and strategic discussions across the left. And we've brought together really an all-star cast of scholar activists, some of the people I literally most respect, who are writing and working on these issues. What we'll be doing is having about 10 minutes of comments from each of our panelists. Then I will be directing some questions to them, and we'll follow that up by, through the chat, taking some questions from all of you, which I will be directing to them. For the event today, we have Justin Akershakhon, we have Nandita Sharma, and we have Vanessa Wills. I'll be introducing them in that order, and I will give you a little bit of background about each of them as we run through the panel. So we'll be going in the order that I said, Justin, Nandita, and Vanessa. So let's get started. Justin Akers-Chacón is an activist, labor unionist, and educator living in the San Diego-Tijuana border region. He is a professor of Chicano history at San Diego City College, and his books include No One is Illegal, along with Mike Davis, Radicals in the Barrio, and his forthcoming The Border Crossed Us, the case for opening the U.S.-Mexico border. So Justin, thank you, and over to you.
Thanks, David, and thank you to Spectre for hosting this event. I'm glad to be here. So I want to start off by beginning with the end of the Trump administration, the beginning of the Biden administration, but then going back, because to really understand where we're at with immigration and borders, we have to look at the totality of U.S. political economy and foreign policy over the last 50 years. Really understand what has brought us to where we're at today. The factors driving regional economic and political integration and destabilization, mass migration, and migrant repression and border militarization were well established before the onset of the 2016 elections, which produced Trump. And this historical process, I'm going to focus on three significant factors. One was the global capitalist crisis of the 1970s, which ushered in a crisis of capital accumulation. In other words, the ability for capitalists to significantly increase their capital for reinvestment through the exploitation of labor, through what Marx called, through the extraction of what Marx referred to as surplus value. And so with this capitalist crisis, we see a new offensive to lower the wages of workers, to break unions while increasing productivity. And immigrant workers and the role of citizenship, the denial of citizenship is going to play a role throughout this process. The second factor I'd like to call attention to is the intensification of U.S. military operations across Latin America during this process, specifically what's referred to as the New Cold War. which basically was military operations directly, indirectly, and support for regimes throughout the region to suppress radical movements, socialist and nationalist governments, and movements in Central and South America, et cetera, with the goal of restructuring the political landscape through the installation of reactionary, authoritarian, and I would argue fascist regimes. This was a continuity, and this has been in perpetuity, to varying degrees up to and since 9/11, the transition to the war on terror as this guiding foreign policy directive. Third thing is, combined with its own decline due to the global capitalist crisis, in a place like Mexico, we saw this sort of created the conditions for the dismantling of a model of the sort of governing regime and the form of capitalism that was being that was sort of managed by the Mexican state. And so this what I refer to as developmentalist capitalism or national state managed capitalism, this also came into the sort of crosshairs of U.S. foreign policy in this larger context. So with capitalist crisis, with the United States beginning the process of neoliberal structuring in the United States, this was then exported specifically into Mexico through the sort of aegis of the crisis in Mexico in the 1980s, and specifically through the bailouts sort of facilitated by the International Monetary Fund, the World Bank, and directly by U.S. bankers and financiers. The capitalist class in Mexico was restructured and supported and guided with support from the U.S. government. It developed a very sort of independent role in relationship to the state that existed, and we see the capitalist class of Mexico implementing a radical reorganization of the Mexican economy through the implementation of what we refer to as free trade policies. And by the beginning of the 1990s, this state-managed system of capitalism was dismantled, specifically between 1982 and 1994. So this type of government, which we can talk about if people have questions about it in the discussion, was a legacy of the Mexican Revolution and a previous epoch of U.S. and foreign capital domination of Mexico.